So today, January 23rd, in 1986. So I know Keith and I were juniors at high school. Skinner was you a freshman then?
Later that year I was, yeah.
Okay. That was the induction of the first Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class in Cleveland, Ohio. The first inductees, some, certainly iconic artists, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, James Brown, Ray Charles, Sam Cooke, Fats Domino, Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Elvis Presley. So obviously over the years, there's been a lot of controversy. I don't know if it's controversy. Some may say controversy. A lot of discussion on what artists go into the quote-unquote Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Is it rock and roll? Is rock and roll just more of a description of music in general? Heck, even this past year, we know we had Dolly Parton was nominated, and she originally said, well, I'm not a rock and roll singer. I decline. And then she came back and accepted the honor because it's more of a...
She should have.
Yeah, it's more of a music artist Hall of Fame. They almost could change the name, or you just sort of need to redefine your definition of what a rock and roll, what is rock and roll music. It's really encompassing of a lot of almost every type of music, almost really. So I don't know. So any thoughts in general of, the types of artists over the years? Like, have you been upset about the type of artists that they've put in? Are you upset that they don't have enough representation of a certain type of music? Any thoughts, Keith, on the Rock Hall over the years?
Yeah, it's an old argument, Fish. I'm done with it, because it is what it is. Too late to do anything about it now. You've let so many people in who were not under the definition that we thought it was about rock and roll. So we understand it's a music thing now, and that's fine, no problem. And I just think there's this middle of the road area that gets looked over. Now, we've seen some of the big, older, heavy, I should say hard rock. No one will necessarily call them metal acts that have been in. We've seen Kiss and things like that. But there's just this middle section that is overlooked that have so many albums. It's ridiculous. Iron Maiden, Scorpions. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about bands that have been around since the 70s, got so many albums. It's ridiculous. How many albums the Scorpions have? How many albums Maiden has put out? And, I just think they get overlooked. No respect. Even the Metal Awards show, the Loudwire shows and whatever. I mean, those are just like for newer artists. And sometimes they go to that heavy extreme. But the bands that we grew up liking, I mean, they're just looked over. Van Halen, they might be more mainstream, but you're talking about your Scorpions, Queensryche. I mean, just bands who have sold multiple platinum albums, man, that will never get the respect they deserve.
Yeah. Skinner, any thoughts?
I agree with Keith. My biggest beef with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the definition of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which they've started to define it as encompassing all genres of music, which is fine. But all these years, since '86, we were growing up and bitching and moaning because Iron Maiden and Scorpions and a lot of these bands that we grew up and loved, Metallica is another one, that, why are these bands not in the Hall of Fame? They're the best out there. They're the ones that turn the music industry around, yet they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, that was my gripe, is the understanding of what the music Hall of Fame really was. So
now Metallica did get in eventually. Finally.
Yes, finally. Way later than...
Yeah.
Who were some of the people that went in last year?
It was like
Duran was one of them.
Judas Priest got in. Judas Priest got in as a contributor, like a performer. So basically, they got in as a sort of a different but they're in.
Ridiculous. That's another band that's ridiculous. That didn't get in 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here's some. Let's look at Carly Simon. No,
There's definitely some
she's
big
been around a
names.
long time.
Mm-hmm.
There was some good names last year. Yeah.
Lionel Richie.
Benatar
Yeah,
should have been in
Benatar.
there.
Yeah.
Eurythmics, Lionel Richie. Those are good names. Okay. So I'm going to look up. Let's make this interesting. Let's go questionable. Rock Hall inductees.
Don't forget you can catch us on Bosco Media Network as Keith is looking this up.
All right.
Spotify, Apple.
Okay, so there's some really great names on here. Some of the questionable names have been wow, I actually like all these people on here. Can you guys think of anybody that's been questionable put into the Rock Hall?
You know, it's hard to think about some of that. One thing that gets me is like there's some bands that were newer.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I'm trying to look up.
You're not eligible, I think, until like your first record was 25 years or older. I think that's when you're eligible and all that stuff. But it's just there's artists out there that have just a more complete body of work and been doing it for so long, and how some newer bands pass them by. It's just difficult. It's all just
how many album
bias.
sales that Iron Maiden has? 130 million.
Wow. They were nominated, I think, 2 years ago, and did not get on. Judas Priest came back around. It was like their second nomination to finally get them in. I think Iron Maiden will definitely get in. You have to. But again, that's a band. It's just taking way too long for them to get in. And I agree with the Scorpions as well. I mean, Scorpions, a couple of the average person knows a couple of songs with them, but they have such a extensive, deep catalog.
It's ridiculous.
And one of the best live acts I ever saw.
I totally agree with you. I just said to somebody yesterday, one of the best live acts I've ever seen.
Absolutely. It's insane. Yeah, I like Def Leppard and all that. They're fine, but they're not more deserved than some of these other bands. So it's tough. When you have people's opinions, it's just a bunch of people talking and making a decision like that. All these Hall of Fames. It's difficult.
Yeah.
And
you want to put in perspective. You take my favorite band from back then, Queensryche. Here's a band that had a couple of platinum albums, maybe 4 of the biggest albums in metal back then. Okay, they've been around a long time. They haven't been a household name recently, but this is a great band from a great era. 20 million album sales.
Yeah,
that doesn't even come close to somebody like Maiden.
Yep, never get in. Well, I don't know. Hopefully, they continue to, broaden their horizons and welcome more bands like that in there that we've enjoyed, that we certainly believe are deserved to get in there. So we'll see.
I want to add this too, Fish, and I know somebody here just might not like it, but this is the truth. If we see bands that we love get the credit they deserve, it's going to have to be done by people that aren't into bands like we love and deserve, because it ain't going to get done right.
Yep, that's right.
You know what I mean? I look at that Loudwire Awards show, and it's a fiasco. It's ridiculous. I mean, we freaked out when we see some of this stuff that go on at the Grammys and stuff, whatever. But if you look at shows like the Source Awards, it's like out of control. You hear stories that go on with Suge Knight and East Coast, West Coast shooting it out in the parking lot and all that other stuff. But you don't hear about that stuff at the Grammys or the Country Music Awards or things like that. But I look at that heavy metal awards show, and these people act like they've never worn shoes before. I mean, seriously, just because it's heavy metal, don't act like freaking hoodlums, like your first time using a fork or something, man. I mean, they're screaming, fighting, feet up on the seats, everybody coming out, F-bombs, drunk and high. I mean, come on. Let's have a day where we show a little bit of class, you know? So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, I don't know. All good comments, man.
Keith Porter here, aka Porter House from It Came From Gen X. We hope you've been enjoying the show, but please make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.